Greetings, I'm Doc V. And today I would like to talk about ice. No, not the ice that comes out of your ice maker on your Frigidaire, but I'm talking about the U.S. Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. I've been avoiding this topic for a couple of weeks now. In Minnesota, a woman was shot, and then another man was shot, I think a week ago or within a week, killed. Was it justified? The jury is still out on that. I analyzed and looked at both videos several times, and I talked with some co-workers and friends about what happened. And I admit that the woman, she basically instigated that ICE officer. He had no right. He overstepped his authority, I believe. But I can see both sides. I see how it happened, and I can see that depending on who the attorney and who the judge and who the jury is, it could go either way. The man that was found with a handgun, automatic handgun on his person, and the way that that situation transpired, or the way the transaction was viewed, depending on who the judge and jury and the witnesses are, it could go either way. America seems to be in a situation where there's a desperation. America's trying to hold on to what this thing is that they call great again. Now, should there be a limitation on immigration? Yes, I believe there should be. Should immigrants be able to just freely come over to this country without any paperwork, without any rhyme or reason, and just reside in this country with no system of checks and balances put in place? No, I don't believe they should. Now, when it was just a few here and a few there, it wasn't such a bad thing. But now that millions and millions of people are coming from these countries, some third world countries, some countries that do not have the protection, do not have the support, do not have the opportunities that are available in the United States. Some are leaving and coming over here. And then they're reaching back out to their families and friends from those countries saying, come over to America, come over to the United States. It's great over here. But with that comes some people who are a menace to our U.S. society. There have been some drug dealers that have come over. There have been some murderers and rapists that have come over to the United States. I have to agree that something needs to be done. Some regulation needs to be put in place. But they picked a fine time to start just pulling up to people and just dragging them off the jobs, dragging them out of their households, dragging them out of schools, and putting them on buses and putting them on planes and sending them back to their country without even considering their citizenship. It's getting kind of bad out here. I believe that Blacks are more sensitive and empathetic to what is happening. Because about 100 years ago, after slavery, after the Emancipation Proclamation, where free Black men and women who were no longer slaves all of a sudden turned into competitors or competition for the American dream. So Blacks that were once slaves are now your coworker, your neighbor. And 100 years ago, right after the Emancipation Proclamation and after slaves were legally freed, whites weren't ready for that. Jim Crow laws came into place. There was a racial oppression that held blacks down from owning property, from working certain kinds of jobs. Blacks were shot, burned at the stake for no reason. And the U.S. Constitution, for some reason, was not protecting us, even though in the Constitution it said all men were created equal and were afforded these inalienable rights. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of justice, and it goes on and on. But we know that history shows us that this freedom and this liberty was not available to us, not at the beginning. Many things have changed, but not at the beginning. Why were we a threat? We just wanted to live and have our property and have our lives sweet and happy under the fear of God, but for some reason our existence was not deemed acceptable. Am I comparing what happened to the slaves 100 years ago to what is happening to immigrants that are in our country today? Not directly, but there are some things that are kind of comparable. Immigrants are over here illegally, and they can be sent back and processed back through provisions that have been outlined in the Constitution. However, 100 years ago, blacks were brought over as slaves. Well, not 100 years ago, we were freed 100 years ago, but 200 years before that, blacks were brought over by slaves. And once blacks were freed, you couldn't send us back. We helped build the country. We didn't know anything but this country. Our names are based on the names of slaveholders. We were property. So this posed a different type of problem when blacks tried to apply for certain jobs, when blacks tried to share restaurants in the marketplace and go to school. They were separate. When they tried to get a job, you can't work on this position. You can't be my boss here. You can't do this. There were certain things that were not available to the black man or the black woman. Slowly, we've climbed out, and that has changed. And that has gotten better. And there's some beautiful things happening. In my school, we have a rainbow coalition, I call it. We've got like 25% black. We've got 25% white. We've got 25% Hispanic, 25% Asian, and of course I have exaggerated or just made it easy, 25, 25, 25, 25, but it might be 33, 28, 16, and whatever. But it's a beautiful rainbow coalition. And 100 years ago, you wouldn't find that. Now, we had a meeting today at our school, and we brought the kids into the assembly, and we talked about if you're afraid, if there's some things you're hearing, come to staff, come to the counselors, and let's talk about it. And they were asking me in my classroom once the meeting dismissed, well, Dr. Shores, what's going on? What's happening? What's this ICE? Why are they dragging people and sending back to the country? And I was very careful not to speak contrary one way or side one way or the other, because I'm not ready to retire yet. And I could lose my job for just making the wrong statement, saying the wrong thing at the wrong time, and then get back to the parents, and then they come back to the school, and then I'm gone. So what I did was I was listening. The kids were like, well, why are they taking immigrants out? Why, when they have their citizenship and they've got their green card, why are they taking them? And what's going on here? And I hear they're coming to Atlanta, and what's going to happen to my mom? And what's going to happen? And I'm just, okay, class, that's enough. That's enough. Let's get back to work. Well, we just want to know. I was like, let's get back to work. And I'm listening to them and my heart is beating and I'm like, wow, this is serious. But I knew to maintain the class environment, keep teaching, talk about a few things. Yes, I hear you, but let's get back to work. Well, what do you think? I don't have an opinion right now. This is not the time for it. Let's get back to work. I told them, I haven't been teaching 25 years and, being dumb and just, running my mouth and just saying anything and doing anything. You can't teach. You can't have longevity in the teaching field without thinking. So anyway, getting back, there's something going on in this country. There is something in society that puts a certain people as supreme, and then other people from a different culture or race as subculture. When this is threatened, it is attacked viciously. We saw this after the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863, and then 1921, and other times, blacks were able to establish their own communities, their own cities, their own hospitals, their own construction companies. And it started to rival the wider society. So it was cut down, it was destroyed. You look through history and it's happened several times in history because it threw off the balance of supremacy and then subculture. I'm trying to be nice. So now we have immigrants coming in and establishing themselves. And we have some foreigners that are coming in, they're buying up property and they're wanting to experience the American dream. And this has shifted and thrown off the section of supremacy. And it is being attacked and justified. What can we do? I need to go back to my faith and my belief in God and my understanding and belief that nothing goes unchecked. Nothing. Some people call it karma, but the Bible says you reap what you sow. And I do not believe that injustice can go on and God not see it and not pay attention to it. He has a plan, he has a method, he has a strategy that none of us completely understand, but we must have to accept it because we're living in it. So, immigration and customs enforcement, ICE, shoot your best shot. Let's see how much of this is a move of God and how much of it is a move of man. And it will be interesting to see where this settles up. Am I going to make a strong stance one side or the other? No, I'm going to try to be very careful with that. But it is a topic that will continue in my next few conversations. I'm Doc V, and I'll see you next time.